I am 33 years old and have two children, aged 12 and 8. I ended my marriage with their father when I found out he was having an affair with a mother from our younger son's school friends. Even though I was betrayed, I decided to share custody because I wanted my children to have their father around as they grow up. But since the divorce, he has only been present when he comes to pick them up for visits. He frequently goes out with his stepchildren, but doesn't often invite our kids, saying that these outings are unplanned and sometimes our kids can't join. In the end, I stopped insisting, but I've always felt it was unfair that he stays away from our children. Lately, I decided to improve my older son's computer. He then asked if we could give his old computer to his cousin, who is my brother's son. My brother has been a great help to my children. He is always there to drive them to their school activities when I can't, and he frequently takes them to the park, or on outings when I'm busy. On the other hand, my former partner is hardly ever there for them. Whenever I ask him to help with something, he always has a reason not to. He is not in town, or very busy with work. Ironically, whenever his stepchildren need something, he is always available to help. Once he even had a disagreement with the father of his stepchildren at a school event, saying he had the right to be there. When my former partner discovered that I had given the computer to my nephew, he became angry. He said that if I had money to buy such an expensive gift, I should have used it to forgive the 2 months of child support he hadn't paid because he was struggling financially due to having a new baby. He said that if I had a computer to give away, I should have given it to his children or stepchildren. They only have one computer for the 3 of them. I told him that my money is private and I don't have any obligation to his stepchildren. Then his wife joined the discussion, saying that I was spoiling my son by giving him a new computer and being petty for allowing him to bring it to their house. She suggested that I was only doing this to show off in front of his step-siblings. I told her she shouldn't talk to me like that or doubt my choices. I mentioned that I let my children spend time with their dad so they can have him around as they grow up, not to disrupt my parenting. My former partner was upset, but I explained to him that this whole problem could have been prevented if his spouse hadn't interfered in something that wasn't her business. After that, everything appeared to settle down until the previous week. I went to get the children, and my former partner was clearly sad. He said he had attempted to read a bedtime story to our youngest child. At home, he still enjoys being read to before going to sleep, usually by me, his brother, or my brother. When none of us are available, he listens to audiobooks. It seems like my former partner tried to bond by offering to read to our son, but our child refused, saying he could read on his own and didn't need help. My former partner stayed to find a story on his tablet for 8-year-olds who don't have a father, and it deeply affected him. The following day, my former partner offered to drive our older son to basketball practice, but he said he was going with his dad. He promptly corrected himself and said uncle that made my former partner even more upset. And when I arrived to get the children, he talked to me about it. I told him that if our children feel like they are missing a dad, it's his fault. He tried to blame me, saying I was the one making him leave his position. I told him that it's his responsibility to be there for his children, not something I can do for him. I told him that he was the one who caused our family to break apart, and he has decided to spend more time with his stepchildren than with his own kids. I warned him not to deceive himself. The children are getting older and are beginning to understand who he really is as a dad. If he continues like this, he shouldn't expect a lot from them later on. After that conversation, his mother phoned me. Even though she has always been kind to me, I wanted to mention that I would have liked her to show the same care when she approved of her son's relationship, even though her grandchildren were going to lose their father because of it. She ended the call, and we haven't talked since then. My brother told me I could share my feelings, but he thought it might have been better to have our conversation without the children around. Later, my former partner sent me a message saying that if I were not so challenging, he would spend more time with them. I told him that being a good father doesn't depend on how I am, and he knows I have never stopped him from seeing the children. In reality, he likes spending time with his stepchildren more than with his own kids. This is something only he can decide to change. Opinions. Guitar de Steel. You can only do your best. Original poster, and don't forget to hold him responsible for any child support. If it's causing him financial strain, it's his issue, not yours. I also think it was not right to have that conversation in front of the children, as your brother pointed out. However, if I'm right, your former partner picked when and where to meet, leaving you with little say in the decision. I really like NTA Amazing Reserve 9089. If she had more money, she would forgive child support. However, he already knew they were tight on money, but that didn't stop them from having another child. My ex stayed and listened while looking for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet in Ancient Wishbone 4621. Wow, your child is really tough. Congratulations to him. The NTA made a decision, and there is an update from the NTA 11 days later. These last days have been a little strange. First, I want to express my gratitude to all of you. I was surprised by all the advice I got, and I never imagined this app would be so helpful. It's not well liked in my country. Now, let's return to the subject. My former partner messaged me saying he wanted to fix things, stop fighting, and have a conversation with me. I said yes. He visited my house, and we didn't waste time, we got straight to the point. He wanted to know if I truly believed he was a bad dad. I said that if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have picked him to be the dad of my kids. He mentioned it was hard for him, and I replied that it was also difficult for me because I have to do both his job and mine. He said he couldn't abandon his stepchildren because he had already caused their family to break apart. I told him that he had also left his own children without a father. He began to cry and blamed me, saying that when he cheated, I didn't forgive him or agree to go to therapy together. I kept saying things to him that were not very nice, but they were all true. He asked me if I felt sorry for him in his current situation, and I replied no. He said he didn't believe I could be so mean. I told him that after changing jobs, taking my kids out of school early, moving houses, and seeing him let our kids down many times, any sympathy I had turned into indifference. He departed afterward. His mother phoned me and mentioned she was aware of what I had said to her son, that he was still crying. She also expressed confusion about how I could hold so much animosity to cause pain to her son. She told me to move on. I replied respectfully, I spoke the truth, not out of hate. If your son is crying, it's because he's dealing with the results of what he did. Perhaps instead of focusing on his current emotions, you could have helped him learn to be accountable and treat others well. She told me I couldn't understand the love of a mother and the pain of seeing a child suffer. I responded that I could relate because I have 2 children who cry for their father who is alive. 2 kids who watch their dad taking care of other children when he is too busy to be with them. She said he apologized, and I told her not to speak for him and to stop contacting me about her son. I ended the call. I really wanted to cry, but I'm a busy mother, and I can't afford to do that. I want my children to feel secure, cared for, and confident so they can be themselves without relying on anyone, not even me. I brought my children to their cousin's birthday celebration, which was organized by my former sister-in-law. I still get along well with her. She was the person who informed me about the cheating, and that her mother was supporting it. My former partner arrived by themselves and seemed annoyed. My children stayed away from him. They kissed his hand but then paid no attention to him at all. My former mother-in-law told the children they should be more respectful towards their father. My oldest child responded that he doesn't respect me because he and his partner speak negatively about me. I told off my son. Not because of what he said, but because of how he spoke to his grandmother. I told him it was not right to listen in on private talks and then tell others about them. Then I told him to collect his belongings because we were going to leave. My former mother-in-law asked me to stay because the children were enjoying themselves and suggested we solve the issue like mature adults. She asked my former partner what he had said, and he said he couldn't remember. I told her I wasn't concerned, and she mentioned that we should focus on being good parents. I said that in order to be good parents, you must first be good individuals. My former partner was getting upset. My former mother-in-law asked why. We couldn't have a more respectful co-parenting relationship. I explained to her all the things I have said here about his choice to see the children, and how the second custody arrangement is not effective, because he only spends time with them on some weekends. My former partner didn't want to talk about it, saying he had too many children at home. My former mother-in-law told him that his children should be the only ones he focuses on making feel at ease, while the responsibility for the well-being of the other children should lie with their own father. My former partner wanted to stop talking because his mother was reprimanding him for not being a responsible parent. He also mentioned that it was my mistake. I asked him to explain why he thought it was my fault. You can visit the children whenever you like, what else do you need? He began shouting, saying that I was being petty because I didn't really need the money since I earned more than him and had fewer children to take care of. I told him I would stop talking to him and would take action by requesting the late child support payments. His mom wanted to know what I meant by late payments. I told him he was late by 3 months. She was very angry, hit him, and asked where the money for his children was. He replied, I couldn't allow JR to not go to the same school as my son. I didn't want him to feel like he was less important. My former mother-in-law said she was surprised, and then they began to argue. I departed. To provide background, my youngest child goes to a private school, and my former partner covers the expenses for their stepchild to also go to that school. Yesterday, my former mother-in-law visited and offered to pay the late fees. She paid with cash. I knew my former partner would be very angry. Here is some background information. My former mother-in-law doesn't have a job, doesn't own anything, and lives with my former sister-in-law. However, she has a lot of money saved from the inheritance she received. If she covers the cost of education, my former partner is aware that there will be little money left for him when she dies, even though she is still in good health. For a long time he has been requesting her to put some of her money into his business plans, but she has consistently said no. My ex did not pick up the children this weekend as a form of retaliation. Sure, he was completely in the wrong. It's not a matter of point of view now. Rare potato from 1515. The steps and he cares less about Punch the chef's favorite child. He must feel really silly now. Update, 1 day later. When you say you will do something, you should do it. As I said before, my ex's stepson argued with him because my ex wouldn't allow him to leave the house. Now I have additional information. My former partner's stepson was going to go bowling with some friends. His real dad had already allowed him and given him money for the trip. But when he told his mother, she said he couldn't go because they needed him to stay at home and take care of his younger brothers and sisters. My former partner and his current spouse had organized a trip and were looking for someone to take care of the children. This caused a disagreement. The boy spoke loudly to his mother, and my former partner intervened to ask him to treat her with respect. The boy said he was not his dad. My ex tried to show he was in charge by telling him that while he lived in his house, he had to obey his rules. The boy didn't pay attention to him and looked in the other direction. My former partner followed him and gently touched his shoulder to get him to notice her. At that moment, the boy turned back, hit him, and yelled that he was not his dad and could never be like him. The mother got mad at him for his actions, but the boy, still upset, yelled back that This version was shared by my ex and his wife with my ex-mother-in-law. Later, my brother's wife told me about it. They visited my former mother-in-law to seek her understanding and ask her to look after the children, 2 stepchildren, and a baby so they could go out. But my former mother-in-law said she wouldn't look after the kids. When I talked to my former partner, he told me he was having problems with his family. He said that the boy's biological father was trying to make the boy dislike him. He didn't provide many specifics and left out most of what my sister-in-law had told him. He just told me that he can't pick up our kids this weekend because of the situation. The 15-year-old boy is currently living with his birth father. Regarding what I said before, my former partner was late with 2 months of child support payments, and that same week he was supposed to make another payment. He didn't, which put him 3 months behind. Finally, his mother paid the late fee. About the kid who goes to the same school as my son, it's not the 15-year-old who was part of the fight. It's his younger stepbrother, who is 8 years old, the same age as my son. His stepbrother is 8 years old, just like my son. I chose to register my son at that school when the scandal became known. Back then, I was a teacher for young children at the school, and the boy was in my class. We all knew each other, and to keep my children safe from gossip, I moved them to a private school. This occurred 2 months before the end of the school year. Thanks to the situation and the help of some nice people, we were able to get them accepted. G Drum 123. Paraphrase G Timbre 123. Even after the fight, they still wanted to go out. What terrible parents. I wish their marriage ends in the future. Carolina Mama 2015. They wanted to go out, but it's strange how he had money to take his new wife out, but not to support his 2 biological children. Okay, 53,143. I find it amusing that due to the argument, he mentioned he couldn't spend the weekend with his own kids. The 15-year-old was correct. The man could never be as good as the kid's dad. The child's father is a good person. Libra Harper Serene. Simplify Libra Harper Serene. A good dad puts his children first, especially when there is a problem. Instead, he takes advantage of the situation to not do what he should. Now let's move on to the next story, which is story 2. I laughed at Ray Farty and ended up not being invited to the baby shower I organized. Now my sister has chosen a practical name for her baby. I am currently engaged in the process of simplifying Spanish texts. My sister is expecting a baby in January, so we are organizing her baby shower for December. She chose to give her daughter the name Rafferty, which was her mother's last name before she got married. It's not really a tragedy, and I think it can be a special name. Yesterday I sent a message to my sister saying that I had to order personalized items with my niece's name quickly to make sure they would arrive on time for the baby shower. Then my sister told me that they are going to use a different way to spell Rafferty. I replied asking if you meant a different way to spell our mom's last name. My sister wants to write it as Rafferty. I replied with many laughing emojis, and she then asked me, "What's making you laugh?" I tried to explain that nobody will say Rafferty correctly, and she will likely hear many mispronunciations of her name. She said I was acting silly. I replied to the message, "My young niece, little Ray who farts. I was not invited to the celebration, and my mom informed me today that my sister no longer wants me to be the godmother. But you know, Ray's flatulence is really unpleasant, right? Doesn't she need to be informed? Please provide the text you would like me to simplify. I'm not sure if it's possible to make updates in this place." Here it is. I apologize for its length, and I've had difficulty submitting it. Is there a maximum number of characters allowed? I will try to publish some and leave the rest in the comments. We had a meeting about Ray Farty. I was advised to share the original post link with my sister to prove that most people would call her daughter Ray Farty. However, some comments were unkind towards my sister, and I don't want her to see them and feel bad about herself. But I wanted to talk about some things that were mentioned. To start, for those who think I shouldn't keep covering the costs of the baby shower, I want to clarify that I never intended to stop contributing and supporting. Despite our disagreements and arguments, I care for my sister and wish for her to enter motherhood surrounded by love and encouragement, even if she does not want my help or presence at the occasion. Also, my sister's husband found out about the name change from Rafferty to Ray Farty about a month before I first mentioned it. He mentioned that he didn't pay much attention to it until he saw it written down, and then realized it also looked like Ray Farty. He mentioned that her feelings had been getting stronger during the pregnancy, and he was unsure how to talk to her about returning to the original name spelling. He thought that after she had the baby, her hormones would go away, she would think clearly, and the problem would be solved. Thirdly, many of you were grouping my mom together with my sister and making hurtful comments about her as well. My mom only found out when my sister called her to say that I had laughed at her for changing the spelling a little. My mom thought it was a small change like Rafferty, but I told her to get a pen and paper so I could explain it to her. When she realized it was Ray Farty, she decided to help rescue the child. For those who said I was not being sensitive and reacted harshly, I had my reasons. Firstly, I was concerned that people would tease the girl by calling her a funny name because my sister wanted to be unique. Secondly, I hoped my sister, despite being forgetful due to pregnancy, would realize the potential teasing her child might face and change her mind. I thought it could become a funny anecdote in the future. Lastly, knowing my sister's sense of humor, I initially thought she might be joking or playing a prank. But if she was kidding, she took the joke very, very seriously. She used $400 to have a mural painted on a wall in the baby's room. She wanted to show the completed baby's room to everyone at the baby shower, including her husband, who was not allowed to see it before. The room had a color called Ray Farty that now needs to be painted over. She also purchased a present for herself for after giving birth. Does this really exist? She wanted my brother-in-law to come see her at the hospital in front of everyone. A gold bracelet costing $900 with charms in the shape of the letters R, A, E, F, A, R, and T, and the letter Y. The book for babies also has the name Ray Farty stitched on the cover. I asked my sister's close friend Katie, who I'll call by a different name, if my sister has mentioned anything about the spelling change. She learned about Ray Farty after arguing with my sister, who was trying to win Katie over. Katie, a teacher, was very shocked by the spelling and said this is the worst creative name she has ever seen. The gathering, like a small party, involved me, my sister, her husband, his parents, my mother, and Katie. My sister didn't think anyone could see Ray Farty as himself, and she thought we were just upset because she was being creative, and that's something everyone does now. My sister mentioned that kids wouldn't be mean enough to tease her daughter because of her name. However, Katie argued that many children can be unkind and others might join in to avoid standing out. My sister said that if all the grown-ups say it right, there won't be any issue. Katie replied that adults wouldn't know how to say it correctly at first, and kids will focus on the word fart in the name. I was glad Katie was present, because she had told me about some unique names her students had. I knew she would have a good opinion on this. My sister cried for about 10 minutes and eventually agreed to change the name completely, because even Rafferty was spoiled for her by all of us. We advised her to think carefully about choosing a new name. She said she still wanted to pay tribute to my mother. She proposed combining my mother's first name with her mother-in-law's name and came up with a name that included an offensive term for a lesbian. When my mom mentioned that, she began crying and blamed us for not allowing her to be a mother. Her husband proposed that we leave the topic for now and give her some space. I hadn't heard from my sister for a while, but a few hours ago she texted me saying that she and her husband arrived at Theodora, and she really likes it. She even thought that my soon-to-be-born niece resembles Theodora in the ultrasound images. She had those advanced 3D ultrasounds taken where every baby looks similar. I responded that it was nice and that I'm glad she's happy. I don't like it, but at least it's not something terrible like Theodora or similar. So my niece was saved from being named Ray Farty. I have been invited to the baby shower once more. I believe this is just a small bump in my relationship with my sister and everything will be okay. Katie will be the new godmother and I am okay with that. I can be the godmother of their next child, who might be named something like Tiramisu. Thank you all for agreeing with me and supporting my decision to prevent Ray Farty from being born. Yesterday, my former sister-in-law phoned me. She doesn't have all the information yet, but it seems that the 15-year-old son of my ex's partner hit him in the mouth. She said she will tell me all the details once she knows. And in case anyone is wondering, it will probably take about a year to complete the new custody agreement. The court states that the payments that are late need to be paid first, and the other payments can be postponed. We have more important cases that need immediate attention. Comment user SNOOWOOFERS496. At least his mother finally came to her senses. Her son is a liar. He must have deceived her when she was defending him. Strange symbol. Hello 7940. When the bad mother scolds her misbehaving child, you can be